Hey, Launch family. In today's episode, we talk about a topic that makes a number of entrepreneurs a little uncomfortable, and that's money. But we brought in an amazing expert on this subject. His name is Mel Abraham. He is a multi-seven-figure entrepreneur, speaker, author, and an expert on getting your financial freedom. He's got a new book out that is called Building Your Money Machine that we dive into all throughout this episode. And yes, this episode also comes with a special bonus, and we talk about risk assessment. So if you want to get that bonus, text bonus 4, that's bonus with the number 4 at the end, to 1-888-530-0282. Now here's today's Dare to Launch with Mel Abraham.
I'm on a crusade to light the path to financial freedom for 1 million families over the next 5 years. There's nothing wrong to make a conscious choice to say, I am running my business driven by a lifestyle. If you did nothing more, you're a millionaire at 65. I found myself in a hospital bed, hearing 3 words I never thought I would hear, and that is, you have cancer. I had to look at myself and say, I'm disappointing the one that I love the most. What am I doing? We were all brought here and given a gift. But as a gift that we were asked by whatever you believe in to nurture and give back to the world.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to today's episode. My name is Chris, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, Fox.
And today we have a very special guest for you. He's a globally recognized thought leader, business advisor, CPA, and financial expert, a #1 national best-selling author of The Entrepreneur's Solution. His podcast, Affluent Entrepreneur Show, was ranked #2 most powerful business podcast by Social Entrepreneur, and his new book is called Building Your Money Machine. It's out now, and we are very excited to talk about it. Mel Abraham, welcome to our show.
Chris, so good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to talk. Thanks for coming on. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Maybe we could start with, just for people who maybe don't know, a little bit of your story and give us a little background on all the things I just talked about there in terms of your expertise in money machine and building a money machine.
Yeah, thank you. I actually started my entrepreneurial journey at 11 years old. And it's an odd way to start, but it's how I started. I was sitting watching a movie with my dad, with Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, about the life of Harry Houdini. And I was totally enamored by this dude that, like, chains and boxes couldn't hold. And I started to study it and study what he did and his biographies and all that. And then I got fascinated with magic. And here I am at 10 and a half years old, taking the bus during the summer, every day of summer, to a magic shop to learn magic. And some guy comes in and says to the guy at the desk, he says, I had a couple gigs this week, this and that, and he leaves. So I look at the owner of the magic shop, I go, what's a gig? He says, he did a show and he got paid. I go, wait, I can get paid to do this? And he says, yeah. So I went home, I put together a half-hour magic show that I decided to do for kids' birthday parties. So I did this half-hour magic show for $50 for kids' birthday parties at 11 years old. That was my first entree into entrepreneurship. Now, there was 2 lessons there. One is that it allowed me to see that you can do things that you love to do and have a positive impact on people's lives. That I knew I wanted. The second lesson is to know your audience, because I did the magic shows as a clown, and kids are scared of clowns. So I had to rethink that. But I think that was the bug that got me to sit back and say, how do I get a chance to live my life, do the things I love, have an impact on people's lives, and make money doing that? And so it led me down the business path. It led me down the entrepreneur path. By education, I became a CPA, quickly realized that was not where I wanted to play. And I spent most of my consulting career consulting with businesses, boards of directors, buying and selling and valuing businesses, but helping people not only build their business, but build their wealth and their life at the same time. And that's how I kind of got here.
That's awesome. That's cool that you started magic. Actually, I didn't know that. It wasn't in the book, but maybe we could talk about the book to start with, because you're saying building your money machine, and that begs the question to me, like, what is a money machine?
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing. We are brought up still with an industrial age type of thought process. Go get a good education, go get a good job, earn money, earn money, earn money. So we're taught to earn. So we become these earnings machines, and we think that the earnings is the key to our freedom, that the earnings is the key to our financial freedom, our legacy, and control of our lives. And the reality is the earnings is not the key to that. The problem is that we know a lot of people that make a lot of money, but they have no freedom, they have no control, and they have no ability to dictate their life. And the reality is that what I want choice in life. I want to be able to do the things that I want to do. And I think that the way to measure your wealth is not in dollars, but in time. This became really apparent at the hands of my son. You know, I was a single full-time dad. I became a single full-time dad when he was 5.5. I was building my business. I was running around the country speaking. I was doing the things that I thought I was supposed to do to build the business, and it was working. I mean, things were working, and it was clicking. We were making money. But he came into me one day. He says, Daddy, I drew a picture of you at school today. And so I knelt down and I grabbed this picture from him, and there I am standing in blue felt tip pen stick figure in front of 2 computer screens and a phone in each ear and then one on the desk ringing. And I realized that the greatest gift I was given, that of being a dad, I was screwing up. And it would have been easy for me to sit back and say, hey, kid, we need this. I need the profits. We need the profits. We need this. We need that. Because that's how we get to do the things we get to do. But we weren't doing the things that he loved. And he, at 5.5, he certainly didn't know what profits were. But if he did, he probably would have looked at me and said, Dad, I don't need your profits. I just need your presence. And that's what hit me so hard, is to sit back and say, there's got to be a way to do this earnings and business differently. And it got me to think, and most people started to get in my ears and say, you need work-life balance. You need work-life balance. You need work-life balance. And I said, that's not the answer, because balance to me is a myth in the sense that it assumes you have a counterweight on one side, another weight on the other side, and they're playing tug-of-war. And on average, it's a balance. It's not balance we need. Balance actually leads to a mediocre life. It's harmony we need. And harmony is driven by intent and being intentional. And I knew that I had to be intentional with my time. knew I had to be intentional with my money, and I knew I had to be intentional, most importantly, with my son. And that's what gave rise to saying, how do I buy my time back so I have choice? And that's when this idea of, I got to create something called a money machine. If I have the earnings machine, I'm making money. What gives me freedom? It's when I can disconnect my actual efforts from the outcomes. So by building a money machine where the money is making money for me and working in, as the subtitle says, when your money's working harder for you than you did for it, it's no longer driven by me on the treadmill. But we don't talk about that. We don't teach about that. We don't come from that space. We just say, earn, 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 earn. Things will take care of themselves later in life, but they don't. And that's where I started to look at, how do you build the earnings machine where you're making the money? And how do you build the money machine where you're freed from making the money? And that's where the whole building the money machine concept came from.
You mentioned between work-life balance and work-life harmony, right? And in your book, you do talk about the essential journeys of like the earning journey, and then there's the money journey. Like, maybe you could speak a little bit about what's the difference between that? Because, a lot of people are uncomfortable talking even about money or addressing that and bringing it to the forefront so that we can actually say, okay, what's the difference here? I'm making money, but like, what's the money journey versus the earning journey?
I think you hit on something just before that, and that is that people are uncomfortable to talk about it. We actually need to talk about it. There's a study out by the American Psychological Association that said 72% of people feel stress around their money. It's almost 3/4. 22% say that it's extreme stress. That's almost a quarter. If we're ever going to have mental wellness or physical wellness in our life, we have to find financial wellness. And the only way we're going to find it is to have these conversations that, I grew up in a household where it was impolite to talk about money. Not in my household here. We talk about it all the time, but not from a greed standpoint, from a vision, from a life standpoint, from how do we create richness in our life standpoint. And so we got to have these conversations if we're ever going to transform this financial world that we've grown up in a way that you actually have financial freedom. And I think that financial freedom is actually your birthright, and we just got to go claim it. The money machine, let me talk about it in one of the frameworks in the book, which will hopefully make sense in this context, because this is what starts to drive things. There is something people will talk about I want passive income. You don't want passive income. There's no such thing as passive income, okay? And if there were, it's not going to last for long. And here's why I believe this, is that your relationship with your wealth and your relationship with your money is just that. It's a relationship. And whenever we take a passive approach to a relationship, it withers and dies. I'll be married 13 years this year. And if I was passive with my wife, we wouldn't be here. And so what I want to do is look at my money and my income through the eyes of leveraging my time versus how much, in the sense of how much effort do I need to put in to generate it, not that it's passive, set it, forget it. Because if you forget a bit about it, it will forget about you. And that's just a firm belief, and it's kind of the way we look at things. That being said, there's 5 types of income that we can generate. And at the very beginning, and this is what most people will start out at, and some people will stay there, is what I call active income. This is a one-on-one relationship between your efforts and the money that comes out. That's your job, you're punching the clock, you're solopreneur, small business type of a thing, where it's fully dependent on you to keep the money. That's what I was. I was a CPA. If I wasn't on the treadmill, I wasn't making money. And if I wanted to make more money, I had to run longer, faster, harder. And that was only going to lead to burnout or breakdown at some point in time. And I was going to cap out. And so the next stage, so we go from active income, the next stage of leverage is what we call business income. We start to bring team in. We start to leverage our time. We start to extract our time out so we can do other things with our time in there. And so now it doesn't take as much effort, but it still takes effort. And so the majority of my income historically was originally from those bottom 2. One-on-one active income or business income. That's it. But the money machine is built on the top 3. The next leverage point up is what we call asset-based income. That's where I can buy an asset. The most common thing would be a piece of real estate, okay, or a piece of equipment. I'm going to rent it out. I'm going to get rent. So my involvement in the generation of that income goes way down. But now I have income. So now what we're doing is we're getting time back in our life, and we're generating income at the same time. The 4th stage of income, the 4th type of income, is what we call residual income. This is I get to create things like my book, or even some courses or white labeling things where I get to license it. I do all the work to build it, to put it together, and now there's money that comes in through royalties or residual income streams with a lot less effort. It could be most of this stuff is intellectual property. It could be books. It could be songs, music. It could be your downline in a network marketing type of situation. That you create something once, now we get to get paid for it often. So that's residual income. And then the final stage of leverage is what I call portfolio. This is paper assets. This is stocks, bonds, annuities, and investments that you would normally think about as investments. Because we create the portfolio, and that portfolio is going to produce income, And that income we get a chance to live off of. That, and it's those top three of asset, residual, and portfolio that actually allow you the flexibility, because it doesn't take a one-on-one relationship of your time to generate the income. That's the money machine. We need to build the money machine in a way that we get a chance to buy back our time and not be dependent on those bottom two. Now, are the bottom two still existing? Yeah, they are in my life. I still have all 5 levels, but the key that I know that I'm in a place to do it is that the top 3 can pay for 100% of my lifestyle already.
And that's just the definition of financial freedom right there.
And what so many of
really
our entrepreneurs are trying to get to, you know, I mean, what's interesting is obviously you've reached to that point in your life. And I think your story, maybe we can go a little bit more into that a bit, because a lot of our people who are listening, they're at all different stages of story. Some of them are just starting out. Some of them have already built massive businesses, and they're at all different stages. And I'm curious, like when you talk about that, but most of them are at least interested in entrepreneurship and business, right? They're excited about building their business or getting their business to the next level. And, you know, maybe you can talk about where in your story, like some of those crucial stages and how those kind of came to be in your life, you know, because I know you've had a lot of ups and downs. It's not always a straight shot journey as you make it look in like this, oh, you just go here to here to here. It's not like just walking upstairs. There's a lot of ups and downs that go through this, isn't there?
Without a doubt. And mine was absolutely no different. I mean, I've lost more money than some people make in a lifetime. I've wiped out 1/3 of my net worth because of an investment in a Ponzi scheme that I had no idea. I mean, literally me and 2 buddies, we lost over $4.5 million.
Oh my gosh.
You know? So no, it wasn't a straight line. I didn't come from money. I'm a son of an immigrant family. My dad came here at 17 years old to go to school. So this was something that I was able to build from scratch and rebuild from scratch multiple times, I guess. But I think that the thing was that there was some really tipping points that got me to start to understand the importance and the need for some of this. Because one of the things, as much as we say we don't talk about money, we do talk about money. But most of the time we talk about money in between our ears. And we tell ourselves money stories. And that's what keeps us where we're at in many cases. Like at 5 years old, is my first money memory. It's the first time I ever saw my dad cry. And I tell the story in the book. And I don't remember exactly the context, but I do remember that here's this man that I thought was so powerful who fought to get to this country, who was being hunted to be hung and all that stuff, in tears, looking at my mother saying, we just can't afford it. And he's saying to her, I just feel like I'm letting the people I love the most down. And I took that on as saying, if I don't make enough money, I'm going to disappoint people. And so, but that story is what started to drive things. But yet, in the end, not in the end, but when Jeremy painted that picture, when he drew that picture, I was doing the same thing. The person I loved the most, even though it was generating the income, I had to look at myself and say, I'm disappointing the one that I love the most. What am I doing? And this is why I think that the money journey cannot be separated from the life journey. And we have to, because we can build big bank accounts. We can talk about investments and all that stuff and build big investment portfolios and big accounts and big money machines. And we have these huge accounts and we're wealthy beyond imagination and we could be bankrupt in life. And I don't want that. And the challenge is that just looking and saying, if I stuffed the thing down that Jeremy drew versus sitting back and saying, what does this mean? How does this change where I want to go? I wouldn't be here. And I think that when you say ups and downs, being willing to accept what is and the roles and the things that happen and take lessons from it is where we found the growth. And so my dad crying is one, the Jeremy drawing is another. The Ponzi scheme is what gave rise to all the rules, investing rules, and the things that I do. Because, yeah, I lost a lot of money, well into the 7 figures. But in 18 months, we were able to rebuild it, and not only rebuild it, surpass it. We tripled it, okay? But it forced me to learn more. It forced me to learn about me. It forced me to learn about the mistakes I made, and it forced me to put rules in place to start to drive that. And so there's people out there that are struggling. I just got a note from someone who's struggling financially, and we, until we're prepared to accept our role and how we got here, we won't be empowered to improve our future. And here's what I mean by this, is that I had to accept the role that I took in that Ponzi scheme. It was easy for me to say, he's a thief, he's a con, and he stole from me. But I had a role in it. Like it or not, I gave him money, I kept giving him money. And I didn't listen to the voice in my head. But until I was willing to take responsibility, I wasn't empowered to do anything. I wasn't empowered to grow. I wasn't empowered to get better. And the beautiful thing is, just like Jeremy at 5.5 years old, he was now 15 when this happened. I looked at him and I said, he's watching me. And in a time of adversity, I can either teach him the lesson that you curl up in a ball and and wait for the storm to pass, or you find a way to fight. And so I didn't want him to live that way. And so I literally sat him down and said, I'm going to explain everything that happened. I'm going to tell you the things that I think I did wrong. It hurt. It's going to leave a mark, but it isn't going to destroy us. Let's get on with it. And so I think that when we start to look through those eyes, that was a big turning point, was for me to sit back and say, now, couple things, what are the rules? And I realized I can rebuild. In 18 months, we tripled it. So, okay, you took away my money, but you didn't take away the skill sets. You didn't take away the knowledge. You actually gave me even more knowledge in the process. I don't recommend it for anyone, but if you're going to go through it, take something good out of it and grow from it. And then I truly believe in paying it forward, in teaching it, and sitting back and saying, if I'm going to get a over $1 million education, then y'all don't need to pay $1 million to get the same education. Let me put it out in the world that way. That is probably the big pivots in there. But then there was one major aha that happened in 2019. And at the hands of Jeremy was the birth of the money machine concept in my world. But in June of 2019, I was flying around the country, I just came back from masterminding, and Jeff, you were there in Puerto Rico and all that stuff. Life was good. I just did a multi-six-figure launch, and life is good. I step off a private jet, not mine, all right? But if you're ever going to do a private jet, make sure someone else pays for it. It's fun.
Yeah, wasn't it a G4?
It's G4 or G5, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, so those of you, I mean, that's next level private jet. I mean, there's levels of private. G4s.
Yeah.
Pretty nice one.
This was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. But literally 2 weeks as I stepped off that jet, I found myself in a hospital bed, hearing 3 words I never thought I would hear, and that is, you have cancer. That they found what they thought was a 5-centimeter tumor in my bladder. Turned out to be 7.5 centimeters. I struggled because I sat back and said, I'm not a smoker. I'm not a drinker. I live a fit life. I live a good life. How could I get that? No one in my family ever had cancer. And I struggled to try and figure this out. But the one thing that I knew is they looked at me and they said, it's on top of the prostate. So when we go in, we might have to remove the prostate. We'll take the tumor out. We might have to put a tube and a bag in for the right side of the kidney because we can't see the ureter on the right side. And if it's bad, you're going to lose your bladder. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went from life is wonderful, living on the beach, to life, I don't know how much it exists anymore. And so, but what I knew in that moment is that I absolutely had to fight. And I said, we're shutting everything down. We're closing everything off. And the sole focus is to beat this cancer. And I was able to do that because of the money machine in hindsight. is that I shut down the active income. I shut down the business income. And I told my team, I said, let the switch on the money machine give us the cash flow instead of continuing to build it. So I fought the cancer physically, mentally, spiritually, energetically, medically, all of those. I didn't fight it financially because I can't imagine what it would have been like to work during the day to make ends meet and then have to fight for your life during the night. As much as the money machine was born through a drawing through Jeremy, the importance of it was brought home at the hands of cancer. And I think that whether it's cancer or life circumstances, to be able to have choice, to be able to have the option, to be able to sit back and say, I want to take care of my elderly parent. I want to take care of this cause, this mission. That's the gift of doing what we're doing and why I think it's so important to make it happen. And even if we don't get all the way there, the fact that we got partially the way there because we did it, we get a chance to say we did it our way.
So Mel, thanks for sharing that. And that cancer journey was crazy and scary. And
you were with me the whole time.
Yeah. So glad to see you looking great. You said something in there that you said when you lost that money to the Ponzi scheme that you sat down with Jeremy but one of the thoughts in your head is he's watching me. And Chris and I actually just recorded an episode and it was Chris interviewing me about a lot of the setbacks I'd had and sort of my mindset in all of those things, all those times, because every entrepreneur who's been around for any length of time, we've all had plenty of setbacks. And Chris was like pushing me about my mindset, like during some of these times. One of the most recent was COVID. We had a great big team, all dependent on us. At the beginning of COVID, no one knew what was going to happen. And that thought that, he's watching. In other words, this is the moment. This is a moment of leadership. And for you, it was with your son in this instance. But as entrepreneurs, we will always have these moments of leadership. And none of us are ever perfect. And none of us are born being leaders. But to me, that piece of this is the time he's watching me or they're watching me. This is a time where I have to show up and step into who I've become, who I've trained to be, and step into that leadership. It was just that phrase. I wrote that down. It's one of those. It was a moment of leadership.
I think that you hit on something. This idea of what we do actually matters. How we show up versus what we say actually matters. People are watching.
So, Mel, the PLF world very, very well. I mean, we go way back. I was trying to remember how long we go back, but it's over a decade. I know that for sure.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and we first met at Brendan's events because back when Brendan Burchard used to do Experts Academy 4-day event, he did that twice a year, and he'd always ask me to come out and speak. I don't go out and do a lot of speaking, but I would always say yes to Brendan because that he's awesome and because that event was amazing and it was just my people. It was just everything about it was great. And you were always there and you were always backstage just helping Brendan make everything happen, all the pieces, moving parts. And then you started coming out to PLF Live with me. And I love that you were the voice of God for me, bringing me out the stage every single time. It was so awesome. But so my world very, very, very well. And we have a lot of people come in and do launches. And they just a lot. It's not unusual for someone to just come out the gate and just have a very successful launch. And certainly not everyone does. And most people start slowly and they grow from there. But occasionally have some people come in and just do these massive launches right off the bat. They could be 5-figure, multi-5-figure, 6-figure launches. And one of the things, like when I'm thinking about building this money machine, one of the things you have to do is you actually have to succeed in not spending all the money. Because you're never going to build asset income, residual income, or portfolio income unless you have capital in the first place. In other words, unless you spend less than you make. We all know that a lot of people tend to have especially when they have a sudden increase in income, they tend to have a sudden increase in lifestyle as well.
Yes.
So could you speak to that? How do you avoid that? How do folks who, they've been struggling, all of a sudden, boom, things start to turn on and the revenue's flowing in. How do they not go buy the big TV, the nicer car, the nicer home, the big vacation, and start to save some of that money?
I love this question because, look, and especially in today's world, where so much is being paraded in front of us on social media
100%.
and all that type of stuff. Here's a couple things that I think is really important. I want to get ahead of it, because the tendency is when all of a sudden a pot of cash lands in our lap and we haven't gotten ahead of it, and I'll explain what that is, our emotions go up. And when we make financial decisions through emotions, typically, when our emotions go up, our financial intellect goes down. Simple as that. When this con artist stirred up my emotions about what this could mean for me and the earnings and all that stuff, I went straight from smart to stupid and made some bad investments. Now, I'm not saying people will do that, but here's what I mean, is that there's a couple things I want us to do. I want us, when you start to plan your launches, you're going to sit there and do the calculations. You're going to figure out what the launch is, and you're going to figure out what the costs are and what the expenses are. One, I want a line item in the budget for the launch, for your celebration. What's the reward you're going to give yourself when you hit these metrics? Okay. I also want a line item in the budget, as if it were an expense, for your investing, for your financial future. There's a beautiful dance between this launch world and investing, and that is something that I call leapfrog funding. When I came up, before I got into this online space, and I still do some of it, I was valuing businesses, and I was buying and selling businesses, and I was testifying at trial and everything. So I would get a $50,000 job or a $100,000 job or a $200,000 job, and I would get this lump sum in. And if I wasn't careful, I would sit back and go, let's upscale life. So what I did is that I called it leapfrog funding. I said, all right, let's say I got $100,000 in. The first piece I got to take off is taxes, okay? Because like it or not, they're going to peel their share off, and they'll peel it out of your bone if you don't have the money to pay for it. So take taxes off, okay? The second piece is I will look at it, because if I'm in a launch type of business, when is the next revenue generating activity? How much money do I need to cover those bills between now and the next revenue generating activity? Set that aside. And all this money I would set aside right now, I would set aside in a high yield cash account. You'll make 5% on it. At least you're making something, but it's safe, it's insured, no fees, you're good, and it's out of the way, it's not spent. So now I've taken care of taxes, I've taken care of my expenses to the next revenue generating activity, and then I take a slice of it for celebration. In other words, I want to satisfy the desire and the need to celebrate, and we should be celebrating. We shouldn't be, if we don't enjoy the journey to financial freedom, we won't enjoy the journey in financial freedom. So I want us to have celebration points for the successes we make. And then the remainder of that, I'm going to move into investments. So I leapfrog fund my investment portfolio, because the more I can front load it, the more time will do the heavy lifting to build the machine. And I'll give you for instance. I had a 16-and-a-half-year-old kid decide he wanted to, he was on my live launch, and he's asking questions. He's really curious, and he's not sure, should I do it? Should I not do it? Now, mind you, my program is a couple $1,000, so it's not cheap. His mom says, can I talk to you? My mom's not sure. I said, let me talk to your mom, and let's just understand it. We'll get on a call. I get on a call with him and his mom. We have a conversation. He decides to invest. He was on a call about 4 months ago. He says, I got a job now. I'm 17 and a half. I got a job. What should I do? I said, open a Roth. So he opens a Roth. 3 weeks ago, he's on a call with me. He's now 18. He says, I funded the Roth for 2023. And I said, he says, where do I invest? I said, so I'm thinking he's 18 years old. How much is he going to fund? Maybe $1,000. So I said, so how much did you fund? He says, well, I fully funded 2023 for $6,500. And I already funded 2024 for $7,000. I said, hold on a second. You're 18 years old and you've already put $13,500 away? And he said, yeah. Now it helps he's living at home, okay? But here's the magic behind this. At 18 years old, every dollar he puts away will turn into $107 at 8% over by age 65. I said, dude, if you did nothing more, you're a millionaire at 65. If you put no time away, didn't do any stupid, you're a millionaire at 65. Now, if you keep doing that, what happens? And so the thing is that if we have more time, we need less money. If we have less time, we need more money. It's this balance between it. And so what I want, especially in the launch environment, when we have successful launches, this is no different than athletes and actors. They might have a time limit. They may have ups and downs. Take care of the rainy day, then take care of the future, and know that it'll take care of you. And we leapfrog fund it. That's one piece of it. The second piece of it is this, is that imagine for a moment you're going to hire 10 people. You bring all 10 people in, you hire them, and they're in a conference room. It's their first day, and you look at them and say, you probably noticed I didn't give you any job titles. I didn't give you any job descriptions. I didn't even give you any goals. I didn't even give you any tasks. But here's the thing that we want to do. I want to double our business in the next 12 months. Let's go have at it. Like, who would do that? No one does that. You don't bring and hire someone on without already knowing what they're going to do. But yet we do that with our money. Our money is our employees. And they're better than employees. It will work for us 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, doesn't take holidays. There is no PTO, and you don't have to worry about unions. It's just not going to happen. And so the thing is that what we need to do is give every dollar that's coming into our life a job description. But here's the key. Before you earn it. You might call it budgeting. I call it cash resource planning. But the point is that before I earn this dollar, I got to know that this $10 is for my mortgage. This $10 is for my future. This is for food. This is for fun. This is for travel. This is for this. And you define it beforehand. Every dollar has a job description. Couple things happen when you do that. You reduce the propensity for emotional spending. Okay? And you also eliminate shame and guilt when there is spending. So, for instance, you put it in there and say, this $150 is to go to a nice dinner with my wife or my husband. Now, when you go there and you have the $150 dinner, there's no guilt or shame. It was already assigned. It was already done. You go and you enjoy the moment, you relish it, and you live into it, and you live that richness because you orchestrated it. And I think that those are two huge things as folks in launches are doing, we need to look at. And then there's one other thing that I would tell you to do. And this is an evaluation of what your top 3 sustainable joy points are. Like, I look at Jeff. I know Jeff loves kayaking. I mean, anything outdoors, Jeff does it. He loves it. This is his joy. So to forsake this sustainable long-term joy would maybe increase his wealth, but decrease the richness of his life, how he experiences life. And we won't do that. But when we assign and we know, hey, these are the 2 or 3 things, like my wife and I, we love to travel. We just booked a trip to Budapest and Vienna, okay? We love to travel. We know that that's our sustainable enjoyment. This is what really brings us joy that lasts beyond the moment. And so that's where we allocate our funds. So we make sure we have fun and enjoyment along the way. And the other stuff is emotional. Like, I got a $900 coffee maker in that room because I was swiping on Instagram, go, I can make coffee in the kitchen from an app in my office? Cool. It was an emotional purchase. It's crazy. But that's what we're up against. And so the way to limit it is to make sure that you take care of those things that are sustainable joys first, allocate the dollars before you earn them, and make sure that you're leapfrog funding your future.
I love that. I love the assigning of them and the thought process around it, dollars having jobs. Because there's so many entrepreneurs, we don't think about it like that, but we would never hire that way. And that's so it totally reframed the way I looked at finances just coming into my life. And that's, I'm so glad we got to that. I did want to ask about, like, because there's sort of this affluence vision that you talk about in the book too, right? And a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, they got their vision board, they got all the dream books, they got all these things that they want, right? And so how is an affluence vision different from that? And why is that not enough? Why is my vision board and my dream book not really enough for me to create this money machine?
I think that we have a want problem in our world. We need to stop wanting so much. And here's why I say this. We get to the end of the year and we start putting New Year's resolutions and we put all these goals in. What happens when we don't achieve the goals in the first quarter or something? You just kick the can down the road. Well, I'll get in shape next year or next month. And so what happens is that when we create wants, we create what I think are soft, movable goals. What I think we ought to be doing instead is creating wills instead of wants. Because if you ever say, I will, then you have to do everything that aligns with it. Because it's a declaration not only to yourself, but to the world. People are reluctant to make a declaration because then it's harder to go back on that declaration. And so when we want to build affluence, and I'll talk about what affluence is in a moment, but I think when we're trying to build an affluent life, we need to build it not just from some dreamy life, but to declare this is the life that I'm going towards. Because when we make the declaration, all our decisions will run through that filter and say, does this move me closer to that vision? And when we talk about finances in general, a lot of people will ask the question, well, where should I invest? It's the wrong question to ask because the investing is tactical. It's the design work on the house. It's the finish work on the house. We need the foundation. We need the framing. We need all the stuff there to hold it there. And what that is that we have to start with the vision of our life first. My life is different than Chris, yours, and Jeff, yours. And the vision for what we want for our families is different. So we have to start with that because we don't all fit in a box. That vision will define the plan we put in place. But that plan and vision isn't just financial. It's about your health. It's about your relationships. It's about your family. It's about your career. It's about all the aspects so we don't end up bankrupt in life but wealthy in the bank account. And so I want to make declarations on each of these things in a way that allows us to do that. So you have the vision that informs the strategy, the plan. The plan then defines the strategy that we need to use. And the strategy is what's going to tell us the tactics, the investments, and the things that we're going to build. And then the tactics tell us the action steps to make it happen. And so rather than just putting a vision saying it would be nice one day, I would rather us create what I call a one sheet with declarations and milestones that we need to hit that make sure that we're moving towards that, but they have to be so meaningful that you're not feeling pushed, you're feeling pulled towards them. And that's the big difference, I think, and the big shift.
We got the strategies, the tactics, and it's informed by all of that. And I think a lot of people listening will say, well, I've heard all these financial strategies and tactics like invest and save and have emergency funds and all those things. We might know those things and knowledge is great, but behavior and actually taking the actions to do it, that I think is often where the challenge lies for a lot of people around these finances. And so how did you maybe find that habit or make it into a financial habit, these healthy and practical tactics so that it does actually happen?
So, and this might land hard for some folks. I actually don't believe that anyone out there, no matter what situation you're in, has money issues. And there may be people going, Mel, you haven't seen my bank account. I got plenty of money issues, But the reality is that what we have is money symptoms. They're symptoms of choices, decisions, and habits and behaviors of the past. And as confronting as it is, it also should be empowering to know that, okay, so if I change the decisions, choices, and habits and behaviors, I get different results. The key to wealth creation is much more a behavior issue than it ever is a money issue. And why I say that is that a recent study, 10,000 millionaires, 79% of them were first-generation millionaires, meaning they did not inherit it. They didn't get it gifted, and they didn't win the lottery. They created it. 8 out of 10 effectively created it. The odds are high then. But when you look at it, then 31% of those during their career never made much more than $100,000 a year. So it wasn't the magnitude of the income. It was the use of the income that built the millions. It's a behavior. And that's the thing that we need to build on. So what happens is that we need to start these behaviors small versus being so concerned about, well, when I make more, then I'll start putting money away. No. That's like saying, when I lose weight, then I'll go to the gym. No, you go to the gym to lose weight, okay, to get exercise in. And when you go to the gym, you don't go and get on the first time on the gym. You don't get on the bench press and slap a bunch of 45-pound plates on there. You've never lifted before and going to try and bench press. You're going to go out of there hurt, okay? You go to the chrome weights. You start building the behaviors. You start working the muscles. And so no matter what it is, even if it's $5, I want to start to create the habits. We want to start small and stay in the game, okay? That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is we have to resist temptation. Credit card companies have figured this out. They gave us a credit card, to give us credit, but not really. Okay, their marketers they're the supreme marketers because they know if we remove the friction from the buying decision, people will buy more. Now we can tap, we can swipe, we can do it with our watch. There's no friction to buying. And so if there's no friction to buying, we tend to spend more. But when we talk about investing and building wealth, there's a lot of friction there. There's knowledge, there's learnings. I got to access the account. I got to decide on which investments I got to do. So we have to start to remove that friction that's standing in the way of your financial freedom. Because until we get past that, we can't fix it. So the first piece is getting some understanding and education around what you need to do. And if it's complicated, then it's the wrong strategy. It's the wrong thing for where you're at. As you get wealthier, complications will find you. Don't search them out. Make it easy. Make it simple. And at the very beginning, I tell people, just put it in a high yield cash account. You're going to get 5%. I'm okay with that right now. Then we'll decide where we put it later. But get in the habit. Make it automatic. Our dear friend David Bach says that. Make it automatic. Why do we want to automate our savings? Why do we want to automate our investing? Because it removes the friction out of it. So one of the things that we want to do is say, I want to remove the delay demons from my investing. Things like lack of knowledge, or I got to log in. I'll do that next quarter or next month. Just make it completely automatic. Every time money comes into my world, it automatically gets moved to a high yield cash account, automatically moves to the investing account. The investing is automatically done every month. I don't have to think about it. Back in the day, you had to, not today. There's no excuse to not automate it. And so what you want to do is say, I'm going to develop the habits, but in an effort to assist with those habits, I'm going to use technology and systems to allow it to do it for me so I don't have to deliberately do it every single time, because the long-term sustainability of that is far less. Now, what I've also watched is once people see the magic in it and the money starts to gain momentum, now all of a sudden they get addicted to it. And they get addicted to the investing, go, oh my gosh, it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. Look at that. At the beginning, it won't feel that way because there's this flat line that we got to pass through. But once we get past the flat line, things accelerate. And your money, the velocity of the money creation gets faster and faster, down the road.
Mel, I don't think I've ever told you this, but a discipline that I've had now for 30 years, more than 30 years. And so this goes back when it started, when Mary and I had almost nothing. I mean, it was very tight, very, very tight budget. But I started doing a balance sheet every single month. First of the month, I would do a balance sheet. And that discipline has been incredible for me. It's all done manually. I do it in an Excel spreadsheet. I pull up all the balances of all the different accounts. I put it in. I put in any whatever our liabilities are, whatever we owe, and I create a balance sheet. And I've just got graphs going back for decades now. And that one discipline, it's like keeping score. And that's like certainly not the only way I keep score in my life, and not even the most important way I keep score. But it's one of the most important, and it's like a game. It's like, how can I increase my net worth every single year? I'd actually like to increase it every single month, but every time I hit a new high in net worth, it's like, yes. But what I'm mostly interested in is having that graph just be a gradual climb up and to the right.
This is why we get along so well, because I did the same thing. Mine's still on Excel. Look at it, and it's graphed for decades. Like, I went back to figure out, like, my first $100,000 net worth was when I was 29 years old, And so I can go back that far, but the importance of what you did and what you're doing is, yes, keeping score, but it is informing you of what you're doing right, what you need to do differently, and allowing you to go, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Versus so many people just don't even know. I don't want to, I know it's not good, so I don't want to look at it. No, we want to look at it. We want to look at it because then we can autopsy and figure it out, and we can repair it. We track it. I track it. I look at it every month. In fact, I just did it over the weekend because we're at the end of a quarter and just updated it again. I track the total net worth, and I track what I call investable net worth. So the things that will produce, that's the money machine piece. That's the stuff that's going to produce cash flow to allow me to fund the lifestyle.
I did the exact same thing. Exactly. Here's the net worth. Next line, investable net worth.
Can you, for listeners, just explain the difference between those two things?
Yeah.
People, may not know. So,
or even what net worth is, frankly.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. So net worth is basically everything you own and everything you owe. Put on a schedule, on a balance sheet, as Jeff called it. So I have a bunch of assets. Now, assets could be bank accounts. You could say, like my wife would say, her shoes are assets. I think they're weapons. They're not assets. But, clothes, cars, all that stuff you could say are assets. And we'll talk about the different assets. And then you owe stuff. You owe mortgage on the house. You might owe student loans. You might have some credit card. And so that's what you owe. So you take the assets minus what you owe. And it's like, if you assume that you liquidated everything and paid everything off, this is what you would have left. That's net worth. Okay. But that net worth isn't the thing that actually is going to provide your financial freedom, because things like cars are depreciating assets. Although if you listen to TikTok, they'll tell you different. Don't listen to TikTok. Clothes are consumables.
Even your home. I mean,
that's where I was going next. Yeah. Your home isn't, look, we live in a wonderful, beautiful home. It's from a financial standpoint, horrible decision because we buried a lot of cash into it, but we're on the beach and everything. We have to differentiate between an asset we bought for fulfillment versus an asset we bought for finances. This was an asset we bought for fulfillment, and we didn't over-encumber ourselves. But why is the home not part of net worth from a cash flow standpoint? Because we're living in it. It's costing us money each and every month to have the home. Now, you need to have a place to live. I get it. But when we're looking at building a money machine that's going to support you the rest of your life, we have to look at only those assets that you can make money on an ongoing basis that can pay for your lifestyle. So investments in stocks, real estate that you're not living in. So first home, second home, vacation homes don't count. But if you have property that's rental property, multifamily property, parking lots, that stuff counts because they're paying rents. And if you need that money, you can use that money to pay all the bills. So we put all the assets that generate cash flow for us that will pay for our lifestyle and make that part of the investable net worth. So you'll have your total net worth, which is the bigger number because it's going to include the home and everything else. But your investable net worth will be smaller because it won't include the home. It'll include only the things that will support you in time. Now, is it possible we could rent our house? Yeah, not likely. Because I don't want anyone living in my home. Yeah, but that's the biggest difference is that when we're looking to create financial freedom and build the money machine, what are the assets that I can acquire that are not consumables that can produce ongoing cash flow or growth for me so it will pay for my lifestyle if I chose not to work ever again?
So if I'm an entrepreneur and we all have those things that are on our dreams list we want to buy, what I want to know from you, Mel, is like, when can I buy my boat? Like when am I allowed to go and spend that money on something I really, really want?
So here's the thing. I'm going to tell you that in most cases, if you can buy it cash, then you can buy the boat. Okay. But remember I said vision, plan, strategy. Where is it in the plan? Okay. One of the things that I want people to do is if we're really going to build the money machine, I want you to start putting 20 to 25% of your income away. If you're putting on a regular basis 20 to 25% of your income away, or you're getting there, we can allocate another portion of the income, okay, to paying for the boat. You make it a sinking fund or an additional item so you can pay for the boat. But what we don't do is forsake our financial future to buy something that we can barely afford or that we're just getting by on. Now, because now all of a sudden, and I'll tell you why this is important. If you start investing at 20 years old, and I know that we have a lot of people that are under 20. In fact, I'll make it more realistic. Let me just look at the numbers. Okay. At 30 years old, every dollar that you put away will go up 23 times. If I wait to 40 years old, every dollar you put away goes up 7. Okay, so point being is that in order to own the boat, if I delay saving and investing for my future, the power of my dollar goes down from 23 to 7. And so that's why I say, let's take care of your financial future first. Let's get the 23 times dollars in there. And we know that we're funding that while we're looking at getting the boat. So I'm not saying not to forsake it. I'm just saying, let's do both. Let's make sure you're putting money away for your future. And then we'll put money away for the boat. And that could be paying the loan on the boat. It could be the down payment on the boat. It could be paying cash for the boat. But we don't stop this because when we get back to it a decade later, it goes from 23 times to 7. And so the power of our dollar bills goes way down. And since we have entrepreneurs, I'm going to just hit on, because this is the other reason that this money machine came about, is that I realized that when I was building my practice and the things that I was doing, that I was building something that was not sellable. If we are a personal brand that doesn't have any market value other than to ourselves, in other words, when we remove ourselves out of it, it's not going to really generate anything. There's no economic value. You're building, if you're building the kind of business that doesn't have a windfall at the end, and even if it does, but in a lot of cases in the online space, you're not going to sell it to anyone and get this, $1 million to multi-million-dollar buyout, $10 million, $100 million buyout without building a business that is not dependent on you. And so being really upfront and honest about that and knowing that is important. When I started down this path, I realized I had no desire to build a business at the level that I wanted to sell it. I knew that I was going to use my business to build the money machine and do it that way and be done with it. Because the other side of it is that even if I tried to build it to sell, who says someone's going to buy it? And at what rate? So I don't bet my whole future on it, even if I could sell it. And so I just want us to be smart about the fact that don't put rose-colored glasses on. Well, I'll sell my business for some huge multiple down the road, because you may. But what happens if you don't? And that's the thing that worries me the more.
Just as an asterisk, Mel, on my balance sheet, I don't even have a line item for the value of my business.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's just not even there. What would you say? Because every now and then I'll talk to someone who's like, you're not an entrepreneur unless you're building your business to sell. Unless you're building your business to sell, it's just, whatever. It's like a hobby or something, or not a hobby, but it's just, you've heard this, I'm sure, Mel. But here you're here as someone who has bought and sold businesses, who's done all kinds of valuations of businesses, and it was also built a business around a personal brand. And could you just speak to the idea of, like, as people have bootstrapped their businesses and aren't necessarily looking to sell our businesses, are these real businesses?
They're definitely real businesses. I mean, just look at the scars we have and the calluses we have. But I also think that the business may not. So there are those businesses. No business is in perpetuity. We've watched behemoths fall down. Okay, so when you get into the business and you decide, I'm either going to build this business for a season or for a lifetime, you gotta take and make some different decisions. If I'm building something to sell, then I need to build something that is beyond me, that has the tiered management structure and has something that's transferable of value, because people will only pay for the economic value they can get in the future. And it's huge. But there's nothing wrong to make a conscious choice to say, I am running my business driven by a lifestyle. And it is a business for a season. There's no one that's going to buy my business, and I know that. I'm not even going to try. And if someone wants to buy my business, let's talk. but the reality is that doesn't make it any less of a business than Google is, other than the number of commas. It's just that we are running the business for a different reason. I was running the business for the purpose of making sure that, so lifestyle is always part of my equation. So I was trying to build a business that was giving me a lifestyle that I wanted, that would also support a lifestyle beyond when I decided to step off the treadmill. And so I think what we do is we have this money time cycle. We start to trade our time for money, which is where we come into the game. Then we realize, I want my time back, so we use our money to buy back our time. And then we go to the next stage, which is where we sit back and say, well, how about I use my money to get more money, then I don't have to buy back my time, and now I have all my time back. And that's the kind of business that I think most of us are starting to create. If we do this right, then we can actually choose, do I want to do a launch this year? Do I want to do these things? But that doesn't delegitimize the fact that you're in business. And if one day you decide you're going to walk away from the business because you decide, hey, I've got other things that I want to do, then you walk away from it and there's no income coming in, but you have this machine that's generating the income, and it's about living your life. And you could bring people in and do a succession plan, but I don't think it makes it any less of a business in that way. It just makes it less sellable. That's all it does. It's a great question. It's a great challenge. Now, you can do things in our businesses where you bring a SaaS model into it, or you bring some sort of other element into it that people will sit back and say, now that, monthly recurring revenues, now all of a sudden it starts to transform into something that is much more transferable and possibly sellable. The challenge is that you got to run it differently also at the same time.
I think this is a good time for a good taco break, don't you?
I'm thinking this is time for taco break.
This is where we ask some fun, rapid fire taco related questions that may or may not have right answers here. So, but we're going to start with the mild ones first. We'll get them a little spicier as we go further in. So our first question for this is for you, Mel: hard shell or soft shell tacos?
Hard shell.
Well, there we go.
Hard shell, but it's usually the fried hard shell.
Yeah. I'm on that side. I love it. It's funny because not a lot of people. You're in the minority with me. All right, so I like.
But this season's been a hard shell kind of season.
It has. We've got a lot more than last year. This is great. So it's nice to know that there's some differentiation here. Now, what about spicy or mild for your taco?
I'm a spicy dude.
I'm gonna go spicy too. What about for guacamole? Are you getting lots of it or no guacamole?
No, I'm a guac guy. Yeah, I like guacamole. I'll dip it in guacamole.
It's like 100% on the guac train here. That's awesome. All right, let's get to some more. Here's one that's kind of financially related. How should I pay for my tacos? Cash, credit, or debit?
I use credit cards, but I do not carry a balance. And if I have to finance tacos, we have another discussion.
Absolutely, I think so. Well, that goes to my next question. I have spent way too much on tacos, and now I have a lot of taco debt. Okay. Let me ask you, what are the best tactics for getting me out of my severe taco debt?
Are you still going to be eating tacos and still getting on taco debt?
Well, I gotta eat, but
I know.
Let's say I'm in that debt right now. It could be from anything, but taco debt. How do I get out of debt? What are some tactics or things that could work today?
Well, the first thing is that whole saying is that the first thing you do to get out of a hole is stop digging. Mm-hmm. So we gotta stop what is causing the debt.
No more tacos.
And then second, or at least knowing, it's probably helping the waistline if you slow down on the tacos and all the block too.
Probably.
But then we need to put you on a debt payment plan. And I'm not one that believes that all debt is destructive debt. Is the demon. I think there's destructive and productive debt. The debt that is going to cause your cash flow to go up and your wealth to go up, your net worth to go up, things for like real estate, equipment, that kind of thing, is productive debt. If we use it properly, it will allow us to grow. The destructive debt is the stuff for lifestyle. It's consumables. It's the stuff that, so if I'm using debt to finance a lifestyle that I can't afford to pay for today, that's the stuff we have to avoid, especially in a high interest rate economy. So we need to avoid that because carrying balances on credit cards will destroy your wealth building journey. So on a debt payment plan, you're either going to pay the lowest balance first, which is the debt snowball, or the highest interest rate first, which is the debt avalanche. I actually have some worksheets or an Excel to help if you want to figure that out. But the key is to make sure that you're on a plan and that you're paying consistently. You'll pay the minimums on everything, max out on the one card, either the lowest balance or the highest interest rate, until that's done, and then put it onto the next card until you get yourself completely out of debt.
Awesome. And I heard about this brand new taco money cryptocurrency. Should I invest?
Only what you're willing to lose. So look, and I'm not an investor in crypto. I have been an investor in crypto. So just full disclosure, I'm not a crypto investor. Is there value there? Potentially. Is it where I'm going to put my stake, my whole financial future? Absolutely not. It's too volatile. If you look at the data, it's more volatile than the stock market. And two, I got to ask myself, what's behind it? Is there cash flows? Is there a business model? What's behind it that's going to support it? When we look at a stock like Google, there's a business plan. There's an operation. There's a product. There's a service. There's growth. There's all of that. The only thing that's driving crypto right now is demand. Okay, so the more people that are buying it starts to drive the price up. When they stop buying it, it starts to drop the price down. It's supply and demand. But that's the classic definition, if you will, of almost like a Ponzi scheme. Because what happened with GameStop? They drove the price up of a company that was almost defunct to $400 a share. People bought at $400, it dropped back down to $20. And the only reason the price increased was people were buying it, not because the business supported it. There's no economic substance behind it. Separating out the blockchain, that's separate. I'm just talking about Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency in general. And so I would be really careful with it. If I was investing in it again, it would be small slivers, knowing that if I lost, I lost. The other thing for me is that, and I haven't looked at it closely recently, it was cumbersome to invest. And if there's friction or complexity, that actually equates to risk. And so I'm not buying tacos. And here's the other side of it. This is the accountant in me coming out. Let's say you wanted to buy tacos with your cryptocurrency. At least in the US, every time you cash in cryptocurrency, it is a transaction that is taxable. So you're going to pay, you got $2 taco night, you're going to pay $2 for a taco, and you're going to pay it with $2 of say Bitcoin. They're going to look at that Bitcoin, you're going to pay the $2 for the taco, and they're going to look at the Bitcoin that was $2 and say, how much did you buy the Bitcoin for? Oh, you bought it for 50 cents? Guess what? You pay tax on the $1.50 gain. And people don't think about using Bitcoin for transactions triggers a tax in the U.S. Be careful.
Awesome. We'll finish off with a fun one here. If you could eat a taco at either the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight that's coming up, or the next UFC fighter, and this year, which one would you choose?
God, for me, it would probably be Mike Tyson. Just because he's a classic, and I want to see what he does and all that stuff. So yeah, I would probably go to Tyson, even though I'm a martial artist.
Yeah, it'll be a big spectacle for sure. What about you, Jeff? I'm curious. I haven't asked that one of you. So,
dude, I didn't even know it was happening. I'm like so heads down. Don't pay attention to any news, anything. I'm like, what?
We got a launch coming.
Mike Tyson?
There's a couple of videos of him working out. He looks awesome. I would not want to get in the ring with that boy.
No, I don't care. No, yes.
Oh man, yeah, he's still just so serious about it. Still looking great at it. Yeah. So I never really got to see Mike Tyson in his prime. I'm just not quite in the age of that, but I've seen old fights of it, and it was like crazy. So I'm excited to see the Mike Tyson fight. I think everyone is. It's going to be a spectacle. Let's we're going to wrap things up here, but for a lot of our listeners, they range from, like I said, entrepreneurs being fairly new, all the way up to people who are crushing it in business and in their niche. And our whole thing here is we're trying to inspire people to take their business and dare to launch to the next level here. So maybe you can tell everyone out there, why should they dare to launch?
I think that we were all brought here and given a gift. But as a gift, they were asked by whatever you believe in to nurture and give back to the world. And we're actually robbing the world of our gift if we don't fully develop it, we don't fully live into it, and we don't fully express it. And I think that each of us ought to be looking at it and say, what is the unique gift that I've been given, that I've been asked and tasked with to come and give to the world? And know that in the process, I sign off my show and everything to say, always strive to live a life that outlives you. And the concept of that is to know that the legacy that we create isn't what we leave behind for people, but it is what we leave within people in the moments that we interact. And that as you create your stuff, as you take your stuff to a new level, as you build and grow, you grow with it, but you carry people with you. And you build legacy inside them because the moments that you interacted made them better, called them to a higher calling, called them to their gift. And I think that that's what we're really here to do, is to give the gift of the uniqueness that we've been given back to the world so they can then take it the next step.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Mel, for coming onto the podcast here. And if people wanted to get more from you and get a chance to see more of what you do, where can they go?
They can find, I'm all over the internet, but Instagram is Mel Abraham 9. And I don't know who the other 8 are, but we can hunt them down. We'll get Tyson to go after them. And my show, the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, and then the book is the big thing, which is at yourmoneymachinebook.com. And I'm open to questions. I'm open to the conversations. I truly believe that financial freedom's a birthright, and it's time for us to go claim it, not depend on other people, but to do it on our own and do it our way.
Mel, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, go get the book.
There's definitely bonuses and other things called yourmoneymachinebook.com. And so we have a lot of resources and stuff. For me, it's the beginning of a journey with y'all. I'm on a crusade to light the path to financial freedom for 1 million families over the next 5 years. That's what I want to do. And it starts with the book.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Thank you, Launch family, for listening. And we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.